This is what's known as the hair part theory, a psychological theory that basically says that the way you part your hair subconsciously influences how people perceive you. The theory was first posed by two siblings, John and Catherine Walter. In 1978, John Walter changed his hair part from the right side of his head to the left side of his head, and noticed that people were suddenly perceiving him totally differently. So, John Walter, who worked as a nuclear physicist, teamed up with his sister Catherine, who worked as a cultural anthropologist. Just two normal, salt-of-the-earth jobs. Over the next 20 years, the Walter siblings tested the hair part theory in a variety of ways before they felt confident enough to present their findings. They did this first by observing the public perception of politicians and celebrities with different hair parts. Then they took pictures of celebrities and presented them to people, flipping the image to see how the perception of that person changed when their hair part was on the other side. So what exactly did they find? Well, the study determined that the side of your head that you part your hair on is directly linked to certain traits. People who part their hair on the left side of their head, meaning that others see it on the right, are typically associated with authority, strength, confidence, and qualities that are traditionally more masculine. People who part their hair on the right side of their head, so others see it on the left, are usually associated with creativity, warmth, openness, and qualities that are traditionally more feminine. Which leaves us all with one question. What about bald people? Well, the study determined that people who are bald, have a center part, or have no visible part at all were usually associated with wisdom, balance, and reliability. So all the bald kings out there can turn off this video knowing they're in the clear. Take off your cap and show off that dome. Alright, now that they're gone, let's get down to hair person business. Perhaps the most important conclusion from the study is this. After looking at the different combinations of genders and hair parts, the Walter siblings determined that, quote, most of the possible choices generally do not negatively affect perceptions of the individual, but the individuals who are potentially put in the worst position are men who part their hair on the right. So women, you're in the clear too. Part your hair however you like and go in peace. Not that there's many of you watching this channel to begin with. So to summarize, according to the study, men who part their hair on the right side of their head so others see it on the left are actively damaging their own social standings because people perceive them as weak and effeminate. Now I'm sure you're thinking this is all a bit ridiculous, but don't worry, the researchers pulled out a smoking gun piece of evidence that's pretty hard to argue with. When Christopher Reeve played Superman, his hair was parted on the left. But when he was Clark Kent, his hair was parted on the right. Checkmate, liberals. That being said, there's something else I should probably mention. To help people perceive themselves the way others perceive them, John and Catherine developed something called True Mirror. It's a non-reversing mirror made by connecting two regular mirrors at a 90-degree angle. And you can buy this 12x12 True Mirror today for the low price of $250. Feels a little steep for something that can also be accomplished by any phone camera. Anyway, I'm not saying the Walter siblings created the hair part theory to bolster sales of True Mirror, but it's worth disclosing. And while the concept itself is not 100% reliable, there are some pieces of real-world evidence that show us the importance of a hair part. Look no further than Jimmy Carter, everyone's favorite former president. Emphasis on the former part, because people did not like him when he was in office. And in the midst of an administration that was rocking a 37% approval rating, Jimmy Carter was looking for ways to shake things up. So in April of 1979, he shocked the nation by flipping his hair part from the right side of his head to the left. And allegedly, this was all because of the hair part theory. John Walter claims that he wrote a letter to Jimmy Carter suggesting that the president make the flip. The Walters were only a year into researching hair part theory, but I guess they decided it was ready to be sent to the highest office in the land. Unfortunately, we have no confirmation that the letter influenced Jimmy, since he never got back to John. But he did make the flip. When it happened, the Washington Post published an article titled "Jimmy Carter, A Shift at the Top," in which they discussed the new part. So the question is, did flipping his hair part improve the public's opinion of Jimmy Carter? No, they still hated him. But the claim from the Walters is that the switch came too late in his term to make much of a difference. To prove this, they took a look at the approval ratings and public opinions of various presidents throughout history and their corresponding hair parts. They found that presidents with left side hair parts, such as JFK, LBJ, and the two Roosevelts, were viewed as strong and confident leaders. Meanwhile, the much less common right side hair part presidents, such as Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, and Jimmy Carter for most of his presidency, were usually seen as warm, folksy men. But perhaps presidents are a bad example for the hair part theory, since people are usually judging them for a few other things than just their hair. So let's take a look at some celebrities with the supposedly revered left side part. Frank Sinatra, David Bowie, George Clooney, and Leonardo DiCaprio. Any thoughts on these gentlemen? Would you call them confident and authoritative? Do you feel inclined to like them? Only if you didn't see The Monuments Men, I suppose. Alright, well, here are some celebrities with the dreaded right side part. Jimmy Stewart, Tom Cruise, Hugh Grant, and Kurt Cobain. Do you find these men warm and approachable? Or do you find them unsettling and weak? Perhaps a mix of both? Perhaps you don't care about any of this and are deeply regretting clicking on this video to begin with. Look, I can't really tell you if there's any truth to this. And I can't tell you if the whole thing was invented to sell you an expensive mirror. But according to John and Catherine Walter, all the right-parting men out there should strongly consider making a change to save themselves from constant subconscious loathing. Whether or not you listen is up to you. But if you were wondering why something about this guy is rubbing you the wrong way, I think we've found the answer. Now please consider subscribing, or you'll be associated with wisdom, balance, and reliability.